Hi, guys. Well, first of all, thank you for being punctual. That means you missed the line downstairs, so you're welcome. You get to enjoy all this great talk that I'm about to talk about right now. So, first of all, I want to say good evening, but also thank you for allowing me to talk about a topic that I'm super passionate about, how to design for the unknown needs of a new audience. So we're going to cover three key areas in this talk. We're going to first clarify what it means to define what is human-centered design. Let's all align on that definition together, because it's a definition that's thrown around quite a bit. There's also a ton of misalignment in terms of what is human-centered design and what does it mean. We're also going to go through some key methods and tools that you can put into practice to uncover the unknown needs of a new audience. And I'll go through each of those key methods and tools itself. And finally, we're going to go through some key use cases, some great companies that have employed human-centered design, but have really taken it to the next level to innovate into a whole new product area and talk to a whole new potential customer segment. And we'll go through a little bit about why that's the case. Before we get started, I'd love to get to know you guys a little bit better. Raise your hand if you're in user experience design. All right, it's quite a few. What about user research? That's a few of you. All right, product. Are there any product people here? All right, some product people as well. All right, engineers. Oh, okay, there's a few engineers as well. All right, I love that. Well, my name is Tania Philip. I am a vice president of product at Shutterstock. I actually started my career as an engineer, let's say a little over a decade ago, but I won't tell you exactly when. But I actually have a degree in computer science. I coded for 4 years before I moved over into product. I had a great mentor who looked at me and said, Tania, you'd actually be great for product. You really think about the customer. You're always thinking about problems that you can solve. I think you'd be great for thinking about a little bit about product. So I did product development for the past 9 years now. And I've done it across a variety of industries. I started first at Citigroup, where I led the mobile team for their consumer mobile banking app. I did it at Bloomberg, where I headed up all of mobile applications for Bloomberg on their consumer side as well as on their professional side. And that was probably the most interesting part of my career because it's truthfully where I gained the most experience, but also the most intuitive empathy for design and really what design meant for customers and how it can have a huge impact for your customers as well. It's really where I became what I like to call myself a design enthusiast. But I wear many hats. So engineering is one of them, product is one of them, and a design enthusiastic is another aspect of it. So enough about me, but I also work at a company called Shutterstock. And for those of you who may not be aware, Shutterstock is a global creative platform. What that means is it's a global creative platform that allows customers to address and innovate on new compelling content, innovative tools, and valuable services. But at the core of what Shutterstock offers is really just great content. That's images, that's music, that's video clips, that allows creators to stitch together a visual story. And we all know that good stories invoke great emotions. So for example, what does this image invoke in terms of emotion for you? These people look happy. They look like they have a great team. They look like they're collaborating really well. What about this image? He looks like he just lost a computer game, a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of sadness. What about this image? Looks pretty frustrated. He looks like how I look after I'm 20 minutes on a phone call with United Airlines, annoyed, frustrated, doesn't want to deal with anybody else. But ultimately, this is what Shutterstock enables. It helps provide content that storytellers can use to tell a great story. And great stories mean invoking great emotions. But enough about Shutterstock. Let's talk about why we're really here, which is talk about how to design for the unknown needs of a new audience. But in order to do that, we first have to really talk about what is human-centered design and align in a definition for that. So let's all first agree that human-centered design is widely misunderstood. It's usually associated exclusively with the user design experience discipline, or is often seen as a creativity tool that involves an enormous amount of post-it notes on the wall. But really, human-centered design is really just a human connection strategy. Products are just tools and services that are part of this larger human ecosystem of tasks and almost spiritual human drivers. It's an undaunting and unwavering love for long-term thinking, relationship building, and enduring quality, but also anticipating your customers' emotional and product needs. And so it's really thinking about how can you embrace this philosophy in its toolkit, but when you embrace this philosophy in its toolkit, how can you continuously anticipate and deliver against your products and your customers' emotional expectations as well? This is probably one of my favorite images, and I don't know how many of you have seen this image, but this image was actually shown by Henrik Kinneberg of how Spotify thinks about iterative, incremental design and product development. It's also used for really defining what they call their MVP, the minimal valuable product. Many people tend to think it's the minimal viable product. It's really your minimal valuable product, and your value is defined by your customers. This first row illustrates a common misconception about iterative development, right? But the second row actually takes a very different approach. You start with the same concept. Your customer or your client wants a car. They want to be able to move from point A to B in a really quick, automated fashion. But how do you get there? Well, if you look at row 2, what it starts with is not building a car, but solving for the underlying need of that customer. How do we get them from point A to point B in a really quick, automated fashion? Well, if I was to put my product and design hat on, I could start to say, what's the simplest tool that we could build for them? I start with a skateboard. And how do I iterate from there? Maybe I build a bicycle. And how can we iterate from there? Maybe we build a motorcycle, and eventually we may get to a car as well. But each step along the way, you're solving for the underlying need of that customer, which is how do you get them from point A to point B really quickly? What I love about this philosophy is you really have to think about iterative development, but you're really solving for the underlying need of that customer. You're not thinking about how do I design the best experience, how do I create the best product that they're asking me to build. You're solving what are they trying to get to? What are they trying to solve for? And what are all the potential solutions that we should try and test and figure out? Because what you'll find is that each one of these solutions solves a problem for many different types of customers. And you want to get to this solution. Let's talk a little bit about what are some key methods and tools that you would use to future-proof your product and business. Now, we all know this one. You all have to know who you're targeting, right? You have to know your customer. But not only speaking to your current customers, but also understanding who your potential customers are, the people who aren't using your product or your service or your design today. Why aren't they? Who are they? What do they look like? What are the problems that they are encountering as well? A really great tool that you can employ to know who your customers are is something that everybody really understands, and everybody in this room I know has already done it before, which is define customer segments and personas. But how do you do this? Really, it's a balance between qualitative and quantitative data. Today, everybody balances qualitative data, right? You go outside, you talk to your customers, you understand who they are as well. You find out what their problems are, who they are, why do they come use your product, under what circumstance are they using your product or your service. But the missing piece for a lot of this is the quantitative part. What are the behaviors and the attributes that your customers employ, and how do they fit into your different segments? Who are these customers? What are the behaviors and the attributes that you want to drive on your product for your customers as well? So a great example, let's say you have an e-commerce company, and a different type of customer that you can look for is a hunter-gatherer. This is the type of customer that comes onto your site, wants to go through your entire product catalog, look at every single item because they're looking for that diamond in the rough. They're looking for that one unique piece that speaks to them, something that's completely different. But if you look at that customer and they spend all that time on your site or your application and they walk away without buying anything, what does that mean for that customer? They just wasted their entire time looking for a unique piece of content and walked away with anything. That leaves a frustrating customer experience. So how would you think about that? How would you build for that? How would you think about that customer experience and building something better for that customer as well? What if you could allow them to save for later? What if you could allow them to favorite or heart that customer experience, that specific item, and come back to it later as well? What you're actually driving is you're introducing new features, but you're actually driving customer behaviors that lead to better customer experiences as well. So sure, you can allow them to save for later, but what you're really doing is saying, hey, you invested some time to find something and we want to drive value for you, even if you're not ready to purchase just yet. So here's some great behaviors that we can show you and some great features that we can give you to help unlock that customer experience for you, but to make sure that you walk away with a positive emotion from this. And that's where we really want to start thinking about customer segments and profiles. It's not only what are our customers saying, what are they telling us, but what are they doing? Or what are the behaviors that we want to promote for them within our product itself as well? Now, on the flip side of that coin, in terms of creating customer profiles and segments, it's also really important to remember that not all customers behave the same. You know, it's really easy to look for patterns. It's really easy to look for common themes, to group users into buckets. What you'll also find is that users don't fit easily into any one big bucket. All humans are uniquely different, and we all know this. And so while there's always a density curve, as we call it, there's also what we call a long tail of customers whose behaviors are uniquely different based upon a variety of attributes. Timing of your experience, you know, conditions under when they would use your problem, your solution for their problems as well, the emotion that they are experiencing when they're using your potential solution as well. All of those attributes can actually impact what it feels like and the potential user flows that they're using when they're using your product or service as well. So as much as we start to think about defining customer segments and personas, it's also important to keep in the back of your head how your customers are uniquely different as well, and what the impact of that is for you when creating that personalized experience for them. Immersively empathize with your customer. We all know this, right? What are all the feelings or the potential feelings your customers could be feeling when using your product? Is it anger? Is it frustration? Is it, I've been talking to United Service Rep for 30 minutes and I'm just so angry at the world right now? What are all the potential emotions that they're feeling when they're using your potential product and service? And how does that impact their experience and their flow to solving their need as well? So it's really important to help understand and empathize with your customer. And some really great tools that you can help to use this is to visually connect your customer journeys by creating a photo journal of their lives. So visually create your customer journeys through a collage and answer questions such as, who are the people that our customers connect with and why? What are the circumstances, under what circumstances are they using our product and service? Where do they spend the most time, and what are some of the problems that they're encountering along the way as well? What's great about this experience is what you're really trying to do is put yourself in your customer's shoes, create user flows, but the most important part, and the part that I see get overlooked so many times, is it's not just about understanding your solution and how you solve a problem for your customers. It's also about understanding all the potential emotions and emotions that your customers are feeling in the moment of time that they're using your product as well. This one's pretty self-explanatory, but find the pebble in their shoe. Try to understand all the different potential pain points that your customers are feeling in their workflow, in their everyday life, and what that means for them as well. A great way to do this is to leverage social media. Customers are now increasingly expecting to interact with brands, with companies, with other potential employees through social media channels. I actually find that customers are often honest and engaging and will provide constructive dialogue about your company, your design, your products, what they like, what they don't like, and they're actually quite vocal about it. At Shutterstock, we actually engage with our customers quite a bit about things that they like, things that they don't like, but we actually use it as a tool to help leverage and gain insights into their workflows, their pain points, and use that as a mechanism to really create some great advocates within the community as well. Slack is also a great example of a company that gained momentum by interacting with their customers through social media tools and gleaning feedback through Twitter. If you don't or can't access your customers directly through your own companies, a great outlet through most companies is really your customer care team. They're really your front line for your customers. So how are you leveraging your customer care team in terms of understanding what your customers are saying and what they need and what they don't need as well? This one, again, is pretty self-explanatory. You got to really truly understand your customers before you can build products or designs for your customers as well. But how do you truly understand your customers? Well, you really have to create a strong feedback loop. You can do this by doing one-on-one interviews, customer surveys, unmoderated viewing, but beta groups as well. Your customer interviews are a great way to get in-depth detail about your customers, but more so to see their actions, their emotions, what they're saying and what they're doing when using your product or your design or your service as well. Unmoderated viewing, we've all seen this. It's a great way to see how customers are using your product or service without actually knowing that you're looking at them too. We all know that customers say one thing, but they do another thing as well. So how does unmoderated viewing actually inform your decision in terms of how your products or your designs or your services are being used? Usertesting.com is a great way to get some of that information. But there's also a bunch of tools through lab testing that'll give you that potential view in terms of how your customers are using your site, what they're saying that they're using versus what they're actually doing on your site as well. Another great tool are customer surveys. It's a great way to get quantified qualitative data. What are users saying, but how does that actually translate into customer satisfaction? It's actually a great precursor to talk about NPS scores and Net Promoter Scores. How are you using quantitative results in terms of thinking about customer satisfaction and how that looks like for your product, your design, or your service as well? And lastly, beta groups. I'm a huge advocate of beta groups. At Shutterstock, we have a two-sided marketplace. We have buyers and we have sellers. Our sellers are probably some of the most passionate photographers you will ever meet. They are also very vocal about change. They do not like change. And so one of the big things that we did is create a beta group of users from our seller side of our community. And what we did is we actually used them as a testing bed to start to introduce change, new design patterns, new features, new products. And what we did is not only get early feedback on some of those new products and those features, but the greater benefit for that was creating advocates within the community. So we have this great community forum where everybody talks about any new changes that we introduce. And instead of us preempting to talk about the new design changes, the new features we're rolling out, we actually had our advocates talk about how this is beneficial for the community, how they're really excited about it, and gain trust within the community because it was one of their own speaking about the benefits of the change as well. So beta testing, it's a great feedback tool, but it also is a great mechanism to create advocates within your community as well. This I think one is really crucial, which is to find your signature experience. This means you really truly have to understand your value proposition as a product and as a business. It means you truly have to understand your customers, what problems you're solving, and how your solution helps to meet that problem. But you also really have to understand what's unique about you, what's unique about your experience, what's unique about the product that you're building. And there's some examples of some great companies that have really created signature experience. Let's talk about Uber. They pioneered seamless payments. Before Uber actually came out, everybody had to go through the process of clicking or acknowledging payments after car service was done, or after you paid for a service, or you paid for your food. It's a very normal process of life. But Uber pioneered the idea of actually you don't have to acknowledge it. It's something that we'll take care of for you and we'll make this process as easy as possible for you. And it's something that they pioneered that now everyone has tried to duplicate in some manner or shape or form. But it's such a core part of their signature experience that it's something that users absolutely gravitated to and loved. Let's talk about Facebook. What about news feeds? We can't imagine a social media app without news feeds in them today, but Facebook was the first to pioneer what it means to create a news feed, to look at your network, to look at your friends, and to look at what they're posting, what they're sharing, and to do it in a great seamless manner. They again pioneered this great aspect for themselves and really thought about their signature experience with news feeds. So a great tool to really think about what your potential signature experience could be is something that we employ at Shutterstock, which is called our North Star Workshop. And really it's just an exercise where you get a group of people together, all from different backgrounds. This is your designers, your product people, your engineers, your marketers, your business intelligence people, your data people, your infrastructure people, and you get them in a group and you get them in a room. Well, the first thing it does, it fosters unique conversations. These are all people from different areas of your organization, different parts of your company, different friend groups as well. But it also creates a shared sense of investment in the experience that you're creating as well. And you get together your team and you start to broach questions such as, where do we want our customers to be? Where do our customers expect us to be? What are some of the products we want to build and the problems that we think we can solve over time? How does that future start to look like? And you whiteboard together a few design concepts of what potential products you could build, and you start to think about potential customer problems that you think you can solve over time as well. What's great about this experience is it really forces different points of views within your company together, but also creates a shared investment where you leverage your expertise across different parts of your company in order to really build out a shared future of how that could look over time as well. It's a shared vision, but it's also being informed by so many different points of view as well that collectively your team is stronger for it, and so is your vision in your workshop. This is actually, we also employ design sprints at Shutterstock as well. And this is an image of some of our designers and our product team and our business folk actually using design sprints to solve a heavy problem when we were starting to think about our pricing page. Our pricing page is a very core part of any e-commerce experience, right? It is what your customers see, it is what they pay for. So how are they driving value out of your company, and what's the cost that they're willing to pay for it as well? And they were solving a big problem here for our global customer base as well. So now that we went over some key methods on how to think about methods and tools to anticipate your customers' needs, but also how to leverage human-centered design, how do you anticipate some of your customers' future needs? How do you design for the unknown? Well, there's a couple of exercises that you can do, and we employ one called the Design Your Future exercise as well. This is really where you get your team together, much like in the last exercise, a variety of people of different backgrounds within your teams, but you start to think about 1, 3, and 5-year increments. And what you'll find is, together and independently, people have no problem talking about what their 1 year looks like, right? They have no problem thinking about where the industry is, what their technology looks like, where their company should be, where their customers will be, and what products they should build. But then you start to ask them what their 3-year looks like. And what you'll find is that most people have a little bit of a harder time understanding what 3 years look like. What does 2021 look like? I don't really know. Is there flying cars? Maybe. But how does that fit into their world? How do they think about that 2021? How do they think about that 3-year increment? And what you'll find is that most people revert back to their comfort zone, where what they know in 1 year, they'll slowly start to expand it into 3 years. So they'll start to say, what can we build within 3 years that we know within the 1 year mark? And then you really blow it out of the water and you say, well, what about the 5-year? What does 2023 look like? What should we be building? What are our customers be? What are our customer problems in 2023? What are the expectations around that as well? And this is where you start to see some blank stares, some uncomfortable shifts in the seat, because people don't really know. But what this also gives is a blank slate. It's a whiteboard where people can now put together the knowledge that they think they know, the knowledge that they have, all the readings that they've talked about, where technology is going, where the industry is evolving, where the potential customer problems will be. And you can start to think about where your potential future looks like as well. But it also gives people the freedom to play within a sandbox, to say, there are no holds barred. We don't know what that world looks like, but let's work together to figure out what some customer expectations are around it, and how do we start to plan for that as well. It's really important for you as designers, you as product people, to really start to anticipate where technology is leading us. We know that technology has been exponential in the past 10 years, and it's only going to accelerate at a faster pace. So when I start to think about today, we all know voice activation is huge. We have a Siri or Alexa today, but it's really just there to check your weather. And it may be there to help you play music from your Spotify account. But what if it's there to be your personal assistant in 2 years? What does that look like? What if you can speak on your watch, talk to your car, and talk to your home, and every single instance of that, they know exactly what you need at any given point? What does that world look like? Augmented reality is here today. We're superimposing virtual images on physical objects today. What does that mean? How does collaboration within workspaces work on AR? What does it mean to interact with your friends within AR as well? Are there any other use cases for AR outside of that? So really starting to think how technology is influencing your customers, the potential problems your customers are facing, but how does that influence the products that you want to design and build as well? Okay, cool. So we covered some good methods and tools that you can employ to leverage human-centered design to think about the unknown needs of your audience. And we also talked about how to anticipate future needs. Now, there's some great examples of companies that have really put human-centered design into practice and leveraged and innovated into a whole new potential customer segment as well. How many of you use the term "just Venmo me"? Yeah. So "just Venmo me" has become synonymous with "just pay me back later" or "I got this for now." And Venmo has really gone out of their way to really accelerate and talk to their core customer base. And if you don't know this, their core customer base originally started as college students. Their founders were college students who really solved a really simple, great problem that all of us have encountered. They had a group of friends at a bar. There were 6 people in the bar, and the waitress could only take 3 credit cards. So what do? Somebody has to pay you back later. Somebody has to run to the ATM. Somebody has to mail you a check 6 weeks later. So how do you solve that really easy problem? But what's fantastic about Venmo is it didn't think about just solving that problem. They started to talk to their customers. They started to talk to other college students just like them to understand, well, what else would you like? What else would make sense? And that's really how they came up with their secret sauce. How to make financial transactions social. 90% of all transactions on Venmo are open to somebody's network or friends. And 75% of all transactions on Venmo have some sort of commentary or emoji associated with it. What's fantastic about Venmo is that it didn't just solve their most basic problem. What it did is really speak to their target customer audience, and through that, they came out with their signature experience, a social feed of financial transactions. Now, if you ask anybody in the world, anybody who creates financial applications today, and you ask them, like, well, I want to create a social feed, I want people to see all the things that I'm transacting on, and I want to open it up to my friends, they would have looked at you like you had 3 heads. But what's great about Venmo is they understood their target audience, they made it comfortable and fun to do so, and it's now something that has an enormous amount of users, I don't even know how many, but it's something that we can use in our day-to-day lives with our friends, but it's even something that you can use as your business. We have people who are hairstylists who are in the service industry. We have people who are restaurateurs who now you can tip via Venmo as well. So what's really great about somebody like Venmo is they started with a core problem, they understood their core target customer base, and they created their signature experience and blew up a whole new market that didn't exist before as well. Callaway Golf. Callaway Golf is also an example of a great company that innovated its way to a whole new customer base that it didn't have exposure to before. But those of you who are not aware, Callaway Golf is a golfing company, and they know their target customer base better than anyone, happen to be golfers. So Callaway Golf was actually quite popular in the 70s and 80s, and they actually became stagnant later on in those years, and they wanted to figure out why. So they talked to their core customer base, the golfers, but Callaway Golf was also really smart. They talked to customers who weren't active customers. They talked to people who could be potential golfers, but who didn't play golf. These were people who were active, they were outdoorsy, they played other outdoor sports, but they did not play golf, and they wanted to find out why. So when they talked to these customers, these potential golfers said they hated golf. It was actually really hard to do. The traditional golf club was actually really small. It had a really small head, and it made it really hard to hit the golf ball. So if you're trying to learn golf and you can't hit the ball, what are you going to do? Probably quit. So Callaway Golf took that feedback and created the Big Bertha. The Big Bertha is a golf club that has a much bigger head and makes it a lot easier to hit the golf ball. When Callaway Golf showed it to their core customer base, the professional golfers, they hated it. They said it took away from the professional golfing. There's no reason why they should do that. But when they showed it to the potential customers, the people who weren't playing golf but were interested in it, they loved it. It made golfing easy. It was something they could pick up, and it was something that they actively wanted to do. So Callaway Golf is a great example of a company that if they just listened to the core customer base, they never would have expanded into building a whole new potential product and really talk to a whole new customer segment as well. But what's really great about it is when Callaway Golf introduced the Big Bertha, just 2 years after it was introduced, it was used in the PGA by the same professional golfers as well. So it's really important to really think about not only talking to your core customer base, but how can you talk to your non-customers, the people who aren't using your product today, and could they be potential customers, and what's holding them back from being so? Okay, so now that we went over some cases of great examples of companies that have leveraged human-centered design into practice, let's talk about the road ahead. So we went over some key methods and tools that you can put into practice, right? How to know your customer, how to find that emotional connection with the users, how to find that pebble in their shoe, what is their pain point in their everyday life and their workflow, and how to truly understand your customers by creating that strong feedback loop. But the most important part is really to make sure you understand more about your customers to create that signature experience. And how do you anticipate your customers' future needs by really leveraging the people in your company, the people around you, to create a shared experience, to share that knowledge, and to create signature experiences with it. One of the best advices for anticipating your customers' future needs, be an early adopter. There's tons of tools and applications out there, more than any one person will ever use, but it's also really important to understand what different customer segments, different types of people, different generations are using as well. How many of you use Musical.ly? No one. Well, Musical.ly is actually quite popular among high schoolers. It allows you to lip sync pop songs. What about an app such as, I believe it's called House Party? No House Party users. It's actually a video chatting app that's actually quite popular among high schoolers as well. So it's actually important to step outside of your comfort zone, step outside of the things that you wouldn't use on a day-to-day basis to help understand what potential customers, what next generations are potentially using, and see how that influences your decision-making as well. So some resources that I use to stay ahead that we covered here earlier. You as designers, you as product people, it's not only important to know your craft and your profession, but it's also important to understand where technology is going, where your industries are evolving to, who are the people that are talking about this, and how can you be more informed so that you can better anticipate your customers, anticipate their future needs as well. So no questions, because I'm running out of time and I talked for way too long, but I'll be around so you can feel free to ask me any questions afterwards. Thank you so much. You want to do it? Sure.
Other questions? Raise your hand. I will run over with the mic.
Question. Oh, a question.
Hi.
Hi.
My question is about the technology adoption curve.
Yeah.
And do you think that talking to non-customers helps you identify like early majority customers that might not be the first people to use your platform?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we know with the technology adoption curve, there's always early adopters, right? These are the people that are the technology freaks. These are the people that love being the first early adopters of any new technology or application. What's really interesting in that is understanding if there is a target customer segment. What's really interesting when we use the Callaway Golf as an example is what they looked to when they looked at this audience of people that they weren't targeting. They looked at people that were active, they like being outdoors, they potentially use other sports. So what's really interesting about the technology adoption curve is you can start to focus on who your target customers are, but these people could potentially be using your product. You're helping to solve a potential problem for them. Why aren't they using it? What could that look like as well? So I start to think about, when I think about technology adoption, is a little interesting. If it's something like VR or AR, there's much more bigger barriers in place, right? Because it's a whole new technology out there. Do you have to buy an entire headset for it? What's the value prop of VR and AR today? A lot of what exists today is really just gaming solutions. But if you guys actually think about the iPhone and when the iPhone came out, it allowed you to make calls and it had a bunch of apps that were games. Angry Bird was the biggest thing in 2008. So when you really start to think about what new technology means, you really have to first start, what are the barriers to adoption? Is it a whole new, is it money? Is it a new technology set? Is it a new CPG that you have to buy? And then also starting to say, who are the potential customers that I'm really starting to target and look after, and who could they be as well? Cool. Thanks. Thanks, guys.